The corridor outside Naval Operations hummed with its usual morning rhythm boots on polished tile, low voices trading quick updates, the soft beep of access panels. Screens flickered with schedules and weather reports, and somewhere down the hall, a coffee machine hissed like a tired engine. No one noticed the woman moving through it all, quiet and unremarkable, a temporary badge swinging gently against her gray blazer. Elena Cross kept her head level, her steps measured, as if she were part of the building itself. "Yay, you. Stop." Lieutenant Mark Rourke's voice cut through the corridor, loud. Public, designed to be heard. He stepped into her path, eyes scanning her badge with open skepticism. "Contractor?" he said, letting the word hang like an insult. "You people really think you belong anywhere near restricted halls now?" A few sailors slowed. Someone smirked. Someone else pretended not to see. Elena halted. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She simply met his gaze and answered, "Understood, sir." It was polite, calm, controlled, and somehow it didn't sound like a contractor at all. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to FOB Veteran Stories and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Elena Cross had learned, over time, how to disappear in plain sight. Her contract listed her as a civilian language specialist, temporary assignment, 90-day rotation. On paper, she was there to assist with translation logs, radio transcripts, and foreign intercept analysis that needed cultural nuance more than clearance. The kind of work no one paid attention to until it went wrong. The kind of role that let her move through hallways without being remembered. She had been living like this for nearly 4 years. Not hiding exactly, just quiet. Every morning she arrived early, parked far from the main entrance. Walked the long way in. She kept her clothes neutral, her hair plain, her posture relaxed enough to look unimportant. She avoided eye contact without seeming nervous. She never lingered in common areas. She ate alone. She left before crowds formed. Not because she was afraid of people, because attention carried weight. And weight left marks. Her routine was precise. Wake before dawn. Stretch. Breathe. Coffee, black. Review notes. Walk. Observe. Listen. She had built her days the same way she once built mission checklists. Simple, predictable, clean. No surprises. Surprises had taken too much from her. As she moved deeper into the operations wing, Elena felt the aftertaste of Lieutenant Rourke's words still hanging in the air. Contractor. The way he had said it. Like a slur disguised as a job title. She didn't look back. Didn't roll her eyes. Didn't sigh. She filed it away. She always did. She noticed everything. The way people smirked when they thought she couldn't see. The way voices dropped when she passed. The way assumptions were made without effort. That she was soft. That she was temporary. That she didn't belong. She let them think it. Silence had taught her things words never could. She heard mockery in tones more than phrases. She felt judgment in pauses. She sensed danger in patterns, not volume. It wasn't something she tried to do. It was something her body remembered. Sometimes, when the hallways were too loud, fragments came back, radio static. Wind screaming against metal. Someone shouting coordinates through interference. A voice, hers cutting through chaos with precision that left no room for doubt. She blinked those moments away when they came. Grounded herself in the present, her boots on tile, her breath steady, her badge swinging. Here she was Elena Cross, not anything else. She paused outside a glass-walled office and checked her assignment folder. Her hands were steady. They always were. Even when her chest tightened, even when old echoes tried to crawl up her spine. Discipline wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She stood the way she had been trained, balanced, weight-centered, shoulders relaxed but ready. She breathed through her nose, slow and controlled, never shallow. She listened the way others watched, fully, quietly, completely. She could tell who had slept badly by how they walked. Who was angry by the way they touched doors? Who carried secrets by how they avoided reflections? No one noticed this about her, and she preferred it that way. Lieutenant Rourke, however, made it hard to remain invisible. Mark Rourke had grown up in the shadow of men he admired and never quite measured up to. His father had served. His grandfather had served. Stories of command and sacrifice had filled his childhood, but none of them were his. Not yet. So he compensated. He corrected people loudly. He enforced rules theatrically. He reminded everyone often what his rank was. He didn't like things he couldn't categorize, didn't trust what didn't fit. Elena didn't fit. She didn't look impressed. She didn't shrink. She didn't over-explain. That unsettled him. To Rourke, authority was something you demonstrated. To Elena, it was something you carried. They could not have been more different. He had noticed her weeks ago, quiet, always in the background, always where she technically didn't belong. She never broke rules. She just hovered near them. It made him suspicious. And suspicion, to Rourke, felt like threat. So he challenged her. Publicly, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she didn't look like someone who could. As Elena passed a conference room, she heard voices through the cracked door. Senior staff. Tactical language. A briefing in progress. She hadn't meant to listen. But some habits didn't turn off. We lost signal near the coastal ridge. Total disorientation. Pilot misaligned by 6 degrees. Her step slowed. Weather interference. No external guidance. We assumed failure was inevitable. Her breath caught just slightly. 2. Operation Gray Wake. The name hit her like cold water. Her fingers curled around the edge of her folder. She stood there, perfectly still, as if frozen between now and then, and for the first time in years, Elena Cross felt something old begin to stir. Not fear. Recognition. Rourke did not confront her again that morning. He didn't need to. He let the small things do the work. When Elena stopped at the admin desk to request a file access code, he passed behind her and said, just loud enough for others to hear, "Contractors really love wandering, don't they?" His tone wasn't angry. It was amused, casual. The kind of comment that sounded harmless if you wanted it to. A few sailors chuckled. Not because it was funny, because it was easy. Elena didn't turn around. She didn't stiffen. She simply waited for the clerk to finish typing. Her eyes stayed forward, her expression neutral, her breathing unchanged. She had learned long ago that the worst kind of humiliation was the kind that came wrapped in a smile. By midday, his presence had become a pattern. When she walked past a group, his voice would drift in behind her. Temporary badge. Temporary people, always a mess with access control. He said it like an observation, not an accusation. When she paused near a digital display to review an incoming translation request, he stepped in front of it and tapped the screen. That board's not for contractors. She stepped aside. When she stood waiting for an elevator, he entered, scanned the button panel, then looked at her. Restricted floors, he said. You know how it works. She pressed a lower button. Each moment was small. Nothing reportable, nothing dramatic. But together they formed a rhythm, a tone, a message. Others began to follow it. Not maliciously, not consciously. But humans mirrored power without realizing it. A petty officer laughed when Rourke joked. A clerk rolled her eyes. Someone muttered, "Why is she always around?" as Elena passed. A few people didn't join in. They just didn't intervene. And that silence was louder than any insult. Elena noticed all of it. The way laughter rose and fell like waves. The way whispers sharpened when she drew near. The way her presence became a quiet source of curiosity. She did not confront anyone. She did not explain herself. She did not defend. Not because she couldn't, because she wouldn't. There was a kind of power and restraint most people didn't understand, and she had been taught never to waste it. At one point, she stood at the edge of a small group reviewing navigation logs. She was not part of the meeting. She was waiting for the room to clear so she could retrieve a folder left on a side table. Rourke glanced at her and said, lightly, "You can relax. This stuff's above your pay grade." A few people smirked. Someone asked, "What does she even do?" "Translates," Rourke said, as if that explained everything. The word carried weight. A box. A limit. Elena remained still. She waited. And when the group moved, she stepped forward, collected her folder, and walked away. What would you have done in that moment? Would you have corrected him? Would you have defended yourself? Would you have demanded respect? Or would you have done what she did and walked on? The pressure wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It pressed. It accumulated. By early afternoon, the operations floor had shifted. Not visibly, emotionally. Something felt off. A minor comms disruption appeared on the lower screens. Nothing alarming, just a brief lag. Then a report from logistics. Then a mismatch between two navigation feeds. Rourke dismissed it with a wave. "Glitch," he said. "It happens." But it didn't stop. Reports came in from different terminals. Nothing matched. Coordinates that should align were off. Timestamps conflicted. Voices grew louder. Then quieter. Confusion settled. Elena stood near a console, pretending to review her own files while listening. She noticed the pattern immediately. The offsets weren't random. They were systematic. She watched how one data stream corrected for wind while another didn't, how one feed adjusted for drift while the other froze. Her fingers twitched. She almost spoke. Almost. Then she remembered Rourke's voice. "Contractor. Temporary. Above your pay grade." She closed her mouth. It wasn't fear that stopped her. It was calculation. She had learned when to speak, and when not to. The issue deepened. Two junior officers argued over whose display was wrong. A chief barked orders that didn't line up with the incoming data. Someone suggested rebooting a system. Someone else disagreed. Rourke inserted himself into the chaos with confidence. Too much confidence. "Everyone calm down," he said. "We're not scrambling jets over a flicker." He turned and caught Elena watching. "What?" he said. "Got an opinion?" A few heads turned. Elena hesitated. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "No, sir," she said. The word "sir" landed without irony, without sarcasm, just steady. Rourke nodded, satisfied. "That's what I thought." He turned away. Elena's jaw tightened slightly, not in anger, in focus. She returned to her files, but her eyes tracked the room. She watched hands hover over consoles. She listened to tones in voices. She felt the rising temperature of uncertainty. She knew this feeling. This was how things went wrong, not in explosions, in assumptions, in overconfidence, in people talking over the wrong person. She stood near a restricted hallway entrance when the alert tone sounded. Not a siren, just a soft change in background audio. But Elena felt it. The way you felt pressure drop in an aircraft cabin. The way your skin noticed before your mind did. A technician frowned at his screen. "That's weird." "What?" someone asked. "The backup navigation sync isn't aligning." Rourke exhaled sharply. "We've been over this. It's a lag." "But it's not lagging," the tech said. "It's correcting in the wrong direction." Elena took one step forward. She stopped herself. She could feel the old instinct rise, the one that didn't wait for permission. She pushed it down. "Not yet." "Not like this." A petty officer muttered. "Should we escalate?" Rourke shook his head. Not until we know what we're looking at. The problem was, they didn't, and Elena did. She saw it in the overlays. The way the digital map was trying to compensate for a phantom variable. She knew what it meant, and she knew what it could lead to. Her hands tightened around her folder. What would you do if you saw a mistake no one else believed was real? Would you speak, or would you stay quiet because no one had asked? Rourke's voice rose again. Why is she still standing here? The question wasn't directed at her. It was about her. He gestured. This is a restricted zone. She looked at him. For the first time all day, she held his gaze. I was told to retrieve documents, she said calmly. Not here, he replied. Move. A few people watched, waiting. Elena hesitated. She looked at the screens one more time. She saw the error deepen. She saw the misalignment increase. She knew what would happen next. She swallowed. Then she nodded. Yes, sir. And she stepped away. As she passed the doorway, she paused for just a fraction of a second, not long enough for anyone to notice. Long enough for her to listen. The voices continued behind her. The confusion thickened, and Elena Cross walked out of the restricted area knowing, without doubt, that something was about to go very wrong. And no one inside would understand why. The moment Elena stepped into the auxiliary hallway, the noise shifted. It wasn't louder or quieter, just different. A hum layered beneath everything else, like a low current running through the building. She paused near a wall-mounted comms panel, pretending to scroll through her tablet while her ears adjusted. Then she heard it. Not the voices, the tone. A faint oscillation buried in the background radio feed, barely noticeable. Most people would have mistaken it for static. But Elena's spine stiffened slightly, her shoulders aligning without her realizing it. That tone meant something. She didn't know how she knew. She just did. Her hand lifted, slow and deliberate, and she rested her fingertips lightly on the edge of a spare headset hanging from its hook. She didn't put it on, she just touched it. Not like a technician, like a pilot touches a dashboard before takeoff. Her thumb brushed the padding. Her fingers curved around the frame. She didn't grip it. She balanced it. As if weight and tension mattered, 2 junior analysts passed by. One of them frowned. Why does she hold it like that? Like what? The other whispered. Like she's about to give an order. She slowed, pretending to tie her shoe. Her gaze darted once sharp, fast, and she reached out, tapped the screen, and made a tiny adjustment. 3 degrees, barely visible. She stepped away. The map corrected. No one noticed. She walked on. But a petty officer had. Petty Officer Nolan Webb stood near the water cooler, pretending to read a message while watching her from the reflection in the glass. He didn't know why he was watching her. He just felt unsettled. Something about her didn't match. He heard her murmur something under her breath as she passed. Phase alignment's off. They're compensating for drift that isn't there. Webb froze. He turned. She was already halfway down the hall. That phrasing wasn't normal. It wasn't technician language. It wasn't logistics. It wasn't admin. It was tactical. The kind of phrasing used when lives depended on precision. Later, in the communications wing, someone mentioned a storm system moving faster than expected. Elena flinched. Not dramatically, just a blink. A breath held for half a second too long. Her fingers brushed the inside of her sleeve. And for a moment, just a moment, the cuff slid up. A thin scar traced the inside of her forearm. Not surgical, not recent. Old, clean, deliberate. She pulled the sleeve down immediately. But Captain Allison Grant had seen it. Grant was the kind of officer who didn't raise her voice. Didn't posture, didn't need to. She watched people. She noticed inconsistencies. She noticed Elena, the way she stood when the comms alert chimed, the way she tilted her head when feeds misaligned, The way she listened. Not like someone trying to understand. Like someone trying to confirm. Grant had served long enough to recognize that posture. It wasn't curiosity. It was readiness. Then someone said the words. Gray Wake. Just in passing. A briefing assistant mentioned it while summarizing a historical case file. We had a similar misalignment during Gray Wake. Elena's hand tightened around her folder. Her breathing shifted. Her gaze dropped. Not away. Inward. Grant saw it. So did Master Chief Daniel Reyes. Reyes had been leaning against a column, arms folded, watching the room. He had spent his life watching people under pressure, and pressure had a smell. He didn't know who Elena was, but he knew what she wasn't. She wasn't a contractor, not in the way people assumed. Reyes shifted his weight, subtly repositioning himself where he could see her without staring. He watched how she reacted to radio tones, how she didn't jump at alerts but responded to them before they fully played, how she breathed, how she listened, how she waited. He approached a junior tech. "Who's that?" he asked quietly. "Who?" "The woman with the temp badge." "Dunno. Translator or something," Reyes grunted. No, that wasn't it. Elena felt the weight of eyes on her. She hated that. Not because she was afraid, because she was tired. She had lived quietly for a reason. Every reaction she suppressed was a choice. Every correction she didn't make was a restraint. She moved toward an empty stairwell, needing space. Needing silence. She pressed her back against the cool metal railing and closed her eyes. And for a second, just one. The hallway became a radio cabin. Wind roared. Metal screamed. A voice, hers, cut through chaos. A just bearing, now. Don't argue. She opened her eyes. She wasn't there anymore. She was here. Elena Cross. Civilian contractor. Temporary badge. Invisible. Her lips moved. She didn't realize she was speaking. "Correction should be 5 degrees, not 3, she whispered. Then, softer. So soft, no one should have heard. She used the old call sign, the one she hadn't spoken in years. The one she wasn't supposed to remember. Echo 3. The alert did not sound like an emergency. It never did. It was a soft tonal shift, barely more than a ripple in the background noise of the operations floor. Most people didn't even look up. A few did, then returned to their screens. But Elena felt it. She straightened slightly, her shoulders aligning without conscious thought. A junior tech frowned at his display. "That's weird." "What is?" someone asked. "Our primary nav feed just desynced from the backup. It shouldn't do that." Rourke glanced over. "Define desynced. It's correcting in opposite directions." "Then it's a glitch," Rourke said. "Reboot the auxiliary." The tech hesitated. "Sir, that might." "Just do it." Elena's fingers curled. She knew that tone. She had heard it in storms, in deserts, in cockpits, in rooms where no one wanted to admit they were wrong. She took a slow breath. The auxiliary rebooted. 3 more feeds misaligned. A new alert blinked. Then another. A weather officer stepped closer to the central display. "We've got a fast-moving cell coming in from the north. Wind shear's increasing." A pilot's voice came through one of the overhead channels. "Ops, confirm bearing. I'm getting conflicting guidance." The room stilled. Rourke straightened. "Hold steady," he called out. "Stand by." Elena stepped closer to the edge of the room, unnoticed. She watched the data. She didn't see chaos. She saw structure. The misalignments weren't random. They were layered. Stacked. She recognized the pattern the way you recognize a melody you haven't heard in years. A second voice came through the channel. "Ops, I'm losing horizon reference," someone muttered. "That's not good," Rourke barked. "All stations maintain current vector until we sort this out." That was the wrong call. She stepped forward. Just one pace. Not into the center. Not demanding attention. Just close enough. Your wind compensation is stacking incorrectly, she said. No one heard her. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She stepped closer. Your secondary feed is correcting for a drift that doesn't exist, she said again. It's throwing your horizon reference off. Rourke turned, irritated. Who asked you? Elena met his gaze. Not challenging. Not apologetic. Just steady. The pilot's losing orientation, she said. If you keep stacking corrections, you'll overcompensate. A tech frowned. What? Elena pointed at the screen. Just a small motion. 3 taps. See that? She said quietly. That's not a weather-induced offset. That's a system feedback loop. The room went silent, not because of her authority. Because of the words. They were precise. Not speculative. Not vague. They landed like coordinates. One of the analysts leaned forward. She's right. That's not environmental. Rourke scowled. She doesn't have clearance. Look at it, the analyst said. A pause. Then another voice. She's right. Elena didn't smile. She didn't acknowledge the shift. She was already moving. She stepped to an empty console. No one stopped her. She didn't ask permission. She didn't touch anything yet. She just looked. Her eyes moved fast, not frantic. Focused. Your tertiary feed is trying to stabilize based on corrupted input, she said. You need to isolate the source before you issue any more corrections. A junior officer hesitated. And you know this? How? Elena inhaled. Slow. Controlled. Because if you don't, the pilot will chase false stability until he doesn't have enough altitude left to recover. No one spoke. A gust of wind rattled against the outer windows. The weather officer muttered. Wind shear just spiked. A voice crackled through the channel. Ops, I'm not liking this. Instruments aren't agreeing. Rourke stepped forward. Okay, that's enough. You. Elena turned to him. Not sharply. Not dramatically. She looked at him the way a medic looks at someone bleeding out. Direct. Without malice. Lieutenant, she said. She used his rank. Not to flatter him. To anchor him. You need to isolate the tertiary loop. Now. He opened his mouth. She continued. Don't argue with me. Just do it. The room froze. The words were wrong. Not disrespectful. Just wrong. They weren't contractor words. They weren't subordinate words. They were command words. Rourke bristled. You don't get to. The pilot's voice cut in, louder. Ops, I'm drifting. I need guidance. Elena turned slightly toward the console. What's your altitude? 4,000, descending. She didn't look at the screen. She didn't need to. Reduce correction input by half. Do not touch yaw. Stabilize roll only. The pilot hesitated. Who is this? Trust me, Elena said. Her voice was calm. Not soothing, certain. He did. The descent slowed. The wind howled. Someone whispered, It's working. Rourke stepped forward. That's enough. You can't just... Elena didn't look at him. She addressed the tech. Isolate tertiary. Lock primary to manual reference. Do not reintroduce automated correction until we've stripped the feedback loop. The tech stared at her. Then at the screen. Then back at her. How do you? Now, she said. He did it. He did it. The map stabilized. Not fully. But enough. The pilot exhaled audibly. I've got horizon back. A wave of sound rippled through the room, not cheering. Breathing. Relief. Rourke stood rigid. His authority had been bypassed. Not aggressively, functionally. He hated that more. He opened his mouth again. Captain Grant stepped forward. She hadn't spoken yet. She had been watching. "Let her finish," she said quietly. Rourke blinked. "Captain, she's stabilizing a situation we weren't," Grant replied. "That earns her 30 seconds. Elena didn't acknowledge Grant. She was already scanning. "Wind shear will spike again in 90 seconds, she said. "If you don't adjust now, you'll lose him again." The weather officer frowned. "How do you?" "Pattern recognition," Elena said. She didn't elaborate. She never did. She gave a sequence of corrections. Not fast, not rushed. Deliberate, each one small, each one precise. People followed. Not because she demanded it, because what she said worked. The pilot's voice steadied. "I'm holding." Elena nodded once. Barely. Rourke stood silent. He hated that too. After a few minutes, the situation eased. Not solved, but stabilized. Enough to breathe. Enough to think. The room slowly found its rhythm again. Whispers started. Not mocking. Questioning. Who is she? How did she know that? That phrasing. A junior officer finally spoke the question out loud. Not loudly. Not accusing. Just confused. "Where did you learn to talk like that?" The doors at the far end of the operations floor slid open without announcement. No one noticed at first. They were still focused on the screens, the pilot's voice, the recalibrated feeds. But when a few people instinctively straightened, when a hush began to ripple backward through the room, others followed their gaze. Admiral Thomas Hale had entered, 4 stars on his collar. Fleet commander. A man whose presence didn't need introduction. He had been briefed while walking. He had been told there was a systems issue, that it was stabilizing, that control had been restored. He had been prepared to assess and move on. Then he heard her. "Hold that bearing. Don't chase the correction. Let it come to you. Just one sentence. Calm. Measured. Absolute." Admiral Hale stopped walking. Not dramatically. Not visibly. Just stopped. Captain Grant noticed. So did Master Chief Reyes. The Admiral's posture changed. His shoulders tightened. His head turned, slow, deliberate, as if something old had just reached out and touched him. He wasn't looking for a face. He was listening. The room faded. For him, it was no longer an operations floor. It was night. Rain against metal, wind screaming, an aircraft shaking like it was coming apart, static flooding every channel, panic in voices that were trying not to sound afraid. And then, her voice, cutting through everything, not loud, not rushed. "Mark your heading. Now, don't argue with me. Do it." He had wanted to ask who she was. He hadn't had time. That voice had saved him, saved his crew, saved an entire operation that was never written about. Hale took a step forward, then another. Elena was still facing the console. She hadn't noticed him. He studied her from behind. The posture, the stillness, the way her weight was balanced. He spoke. Quietly, not as an admiral. As a man asking a question he was almost afraid to ask. "What was your call sign during Grey Wake?" The room stilled. No one else understood the question. Elena froze. Not her body, her breath. It caught before she could stop it. She turned. Slowly, her eyes met his. She didn't think. She didn't calculate. She answered. "Echo 3. The sound of it landed like a dropped object. Sharp. Final. Hale inhaled. Once. Twice. Then he said, "Elena Cross." Her name echoed through the room. No rank, no title. Just her name. and everything froze. No one spoke. No one moved. Rourke stared. Grant's mouth parted. Reyes straightened. Elena stood perfectly still. Not in fear. In recognition. The man who had almost died because of a storm had just remembered the voice that brought him home. And for the first time in years, so had everyone else. Admiral Hale did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. The room was already listening. "Elena Cross," he said again, this time with formality. Not as a memory, as a statement. She stood facing him, hands at her sides, posture steady. She did not correct him. She did not step forward. She did not retreat. "Yes, sir," she said. The words were simple. They carried years. Hale took one more step toward her. He did not touch her. He did not smile. But something in his expression softened just enough to be seen. "This woman," he said, turning slightly so the room could hear, "is not a contractor in the way you think." No one moved. "She served in a capacity that cannot be discussed here," he continued. "Not because it was secret, but because it was necessary." Rourke's face drained of color. She was responsible for the lives of people who never knew her name. She guided aircraft through storms. She stabilized operations that never made headlines. She made decisions that saved crews who never saw her face. Hale paused. And she did it quietly. A ripple moved through the room. Not noise. Understanding. Shock. Guilt. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that settles. Captain Grant slowly exhaled. Master Chief Reyes straightened fully. Petty Officer Webb swallowed. Rourke looked like he had been struck. Not physically. Internally. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted between Elena and the Admiral, searching for something. Anger, defiance, proof that this was some kind of misunderstanding. It wasn't. "I treated you like," he began. Elena lifted a hand. Not sharply. Not accusing. Just enough. He stopped. She shook her head once. Not to forgive him. Not to absolve him. Just to say, don't. She wasn't here for that. Hale turned back to her. "You could have corrected us," he said quietly. "You didn't." Elena met his eyes. "I didn't come here to be known," she said. Her voice was still, controlled. "I came here to work." No one breathed. Hale nodded once. Then, slowly, deliberately, he stepped back. He straightened. And he saluted. Not casually. Not ceremonially. A real salute. One given to someone who had earned it. The sound of boots shifting followed. Not all at once. One. Then another. Then another. Then another. Grant. Reyes. Webb. Then the rest. Not because they were ordered. Because they understood. No one clapped. No one spoke. There were no phones, no announcements. Just a room of people standing in silence, acknowledging something they hadn't seen before. Elena did not return the salute. She didn't need to. She lowered her gaze. Not in shame, in humility. Hale lowered his hand. He looked at her, not as a superior, not as a memory, but as a man speaking to someone who had carried more than most ever would. "You did good work today," he said. Elena nodded. That was all. Rourke stood frozen. Then, slowly, something in him broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. He swallowed hard. His jaw trembled once. He looked away, pressing his fingers against the bridge of his nose, not to cry, but to keep from doing so. He had tried to assert power, and had learned what it really was. No one spoke. No one needed to. The moment passed, not with fanfare, but with weight. And when Elena finally turned back toward the hallway, she did not walk differently. She did not stand taller. She did not look around. She simply moved forward, quiet, unchanged. But the room behind her was not the same. and neither were the people in it. Elena asked for nothing. No citation. No correction to her file. No public acknowledgement. No announcement over the intercom. She didn't want her name added to any board, any list, any hallway display. Captain Grant tried once. Carefully. You deserve. Elena shook her head. Not sharply, not defensively. Just enough. I don't need to be seen, she said. I just need to be useful. So they let her go the way she had arrived, quietly. She walked through the same corridors, past the same screens, the same polished floors, the same coffee machine hissing in the distance. No one stopped her. No one whispered. No one stared. But everything felt different, not because she had changed, because they had. At the gate, she handed over her temporary badge. The guard scanned it without comment. The barrier lifted. She stepped through. And just like that, she was gone. No convoy, no escort, no ceremony. Just a woman walking to her car under a sky that looked like any other. If you had passed her, you would not have known. That is the part we forget. We imagine heroes as visible things, as loud moments, as stories that demand attention, but most of them don't. Most of them move quietly through the world, carrying weight no one sees, solving problems no one notices, holding lines no one realizes we're close to breaking. They do not announce themselves. They do not remind you. They do not correct your assumptions. They just do the work, and then they leave. Somewhere, right now, someone is being underestimated. Someone is being overlooked. Someone is being dismissed. And you would never know what they've carried, what they've survived, or what they've saved unless they were forced to show you. Elena was never forced. She chose silence. Not because she was small, but because she was strong. And strength, the real kind, rarely needs permission. True strength does not announce itself. It waits. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more military and veteran stories. These stories keep the courage alive for generations to come. There are voices we pass every day without hearing. Not because they are quiet, but because we have already decided what they are worth. We hear accents and assume limits. We see uniforms and assume importance. We see badges and decide who matters. And in doing so, we miss the people who carry the heaviest stories in the smallest spaces. The world teaches us to look for power in volume, in rank, in spectacle. But real strength doesn't perform. It doesn't demand. It doesn't interrupt. It waits. It watches. And when it finally speaks, it does so not to be seen, but because something needs to be saved. The next time someone seems invisible, ask yourself what you might be missing. Not every hero walks in front of you. Some walk quietly beside you, carrying more than you'll ever know. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more FOB veteran stories. These stories keep the courage alive for generations to come.